afternoon, good morning, good evening. Zimbabwe is a third world country. Zimbabwe is a failed state. We are lagging behind. And you'll think, could the nation will be looking at stepping up so that we can catch up? And yet we are doing the exact opposite. I think what has happened to Zimbabwe's education system these last 45 years is a matter of deep concern to every thinking Zimbabwean out there. Zimbabwe's education, quality of our education, has suffered. Ever since the country's independence, ZANU-PF has been obsessed with quantity at the expense of quality. Many people who followed the system at the time will tell you that soon after independence, ZANU-PF was obsessed about increasing the number of students to the point where within just a few years after independence, the quality of education really began to suffer. You had situations where some of the established schools were forced to increase their intake by as much as threefold. And yet the number of teachers were never increased by the same ratio. The number of classrooms remained the same. The regime went on to start building schools, particularly in the rural areas, the upper tops. And the number of students kept rising. And yet, the regime did not provide the resources to make sure that those schools delivered quality education. So it was no surprise at all to find that in the rural areas, in the so-called upper tops, somebody will finish O-level. That's 11 years of formal education. And yet they can hardly read and write. You interview somebody who says they've done O-level English, and you ask them what is a verb, they don't know. You interview somebody who says they've done A-level mathematics. You ask them what is Pythagoras' theorem, they don't know. This situation has not changed. In the last 20 years, it got even worse and worse because the regime started starving our schools of adequate funds to maintain the present infrastructure, much less to pay the teachers a living wage. And so many of the teachers have left the country or the profession if they can. The quality of Zimbabwe's education has been going down. And this the country will pay dearly for. We are living in a world where we are now talking of artificial intelligence. It's going to be tough out there for anyone who doesn't have a really good grounding in education these days. They'll find themselves having to compete with others who are well ahead of them. This is the reality. We'll find it more and more difficult to catch up with the rest of the world if we fail to educate the young people. And we are failing to educate the young people. University of Zimbabwe lecturers have been on strike, I think, since January. And so students have not been having any lectures at all for the last 7 months, 8 months. And yet, the administration is talking of those university students graduating. It just underlines the problem here. Graduating in what? Our quality of education is already been going down the drain. When some of us were students, even missing 1 week's lecture was a matter of great concern. Because you know it's a very competitive world. And time does not wait for anybody. What more of missing 7 months of lectures? And then you are expected to graduate. The quality of education has gone down. And it will start reflecting on the whole nation. And even those who are not graduating, who can say, well, this is not my final year. Even if this issue of the salaries was resolved, you're still looking at a situation where you've lost 8 months of education. You're not going to be asked to repeat that year. You'll be pushed on to the next to create room for those behind you. That is where the tragedy comes in. Because next year, you'll be expected to perform to next year's requirements. And yet you had missed 8 months of formal lectures. So you'll be trying to catch up with what you have lost, and meanwhile, stay abreast with what is going on that particular year. An impossible task. I think the people of Zimbabwe should really take this matter seriously. The issue of our failure to educate our young people is something that will come and bite us. And it's going to do so for generations. Because those who have lost out of a quality education these last 30, 45 years will never catch up. We have got to ask ourselves, what kind of citizen will those people make? One of the requirements of a democracy of a healthy and functioning democracy is that the citizens should be educated, knowledgeable, objective, if they're ever going to carry out their number one task as a citizen of diligently holding the leaders to account. If we have denied this whole generation quality education, they will not be educated, they will not be knowledgeable, and they will not be objective. What kind of leaders will they elect? Think about it.